Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into the hidden world of sugar? We're going way beyond the usual sugar is bad for you warnings today.
Well, yeah, we're using this Healthline article to uncover some fascinating and surprising connections you might not expect.
Exactly. Get ready for some aha moments. What do you think? Are people ready to rethink sugar?
Well, get this. We'll be diving into how sugar affects your skin, your mood, even your cells. I think you'll be pretty surprised by some of these insights.
So let's jump right in. Okay, we all know that sugar and weight gain, they go together, right?
Right.
But the article highlights something really interesting about fructose. It's the type of sugar you often find in sugary drinks.
Yeah.
And apparently it kind of messes with your hunger hormones.
It really does. It's almost like fructose has a secret backdoor pass, you know? It bypasses those usual signals in your brain, those signals that tell you that you're full.
Oh, interesting.
So you just keep wanting more and more.
So you end up eating way more calories than you need.
Exactly. And this can lead to visceral fat, the kind that sits deep in your abdomen.
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind that's linked to a higher risk of all sorts of health issues.
So it's not just about fitting into those genes. It's about what's happening on the inside.
Right.
And speaking of serious internal stuff, the article talks about how a high sugar diet increases your risk of heart disease and stroke.
Yeah, and it really puts it into perspective when you think about just one can of soda.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It practically maxes out your recommended daily sugar intake.
It's crazy.
It is. And when you consider that heart disease is the leading cause of death worldwide, this sugar connection becomes even more alarming. It's not just about extra pounds straining your heart. It's about how sugar can negatively impact your cardiovascular system directly.
It's like a double whammy.
It is.
So we're not just talking about weight gain. We're talking about some serious and potentially life-threatening conditions.
Absolutely.
Now get ready for this one. The article brought up a connection between sugar and acne.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. Apparently those processed sweets that we all love, they cause a rapid spike in blood sugar and insulin. And that can actually trigger breakouts.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, could the increase in acne that we see today be partly because of our increased consumption of processed foods and sugar?
Yeah.
I mean, compared to, say, rural communities, they eat a more traditional diet and have significantly lower rates of acne. It's pretty interesting to think about.
It really is. It really makes you think. And while we're talking about potential connections, let's talk about sugar and diabetes.
Okay.
I mean, we know there's a link.
Right.
But the article dives deeper and explains how prolonged high sugar intake actually leads to insulin resistance.
Exactly.
Your body essentially becomes desensitized to insulin, making it harder to regulate blood sugar.
Right, and that's a major concern given the fact that diabetes is increasing globally.
Yeah.
It's a serious condition
Yeah.
and can have a big impact on lifespan and quality of life. So understanding the role of sugar in this epidemic is really crucial.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to a topic that always makes people a little nervous: cancer.
Okay.
The article carefully explains that a high sugar diet is linked to an increased risk of certain cancers.
Right.
And while research is ongoing, the existing evidence points to a pretty strong connection.
Yeah, it's not just a random connection. It makes sense because sugar can fuel some of the key risk factors for cancer, like obesity, inflammation, and insulin resistance. So even though more research needs to be done, the link is definitely worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. So we've talked about weight gain, heart health, skin issues, diabetes, cancer.
Wow.
And now for a connection you might not expect: sugar and your mental health. The article actually suggests that high sugar consumption might increase the risk of depression.
Yeah, there was a study highlighted in the article that found men who consumed a lot of added sugar were 23% more likely to develop depression.
Really?
Yeah, it raises some interesting questions about how sugar might be impacting our moods and mental well-being.
Right.
Could it be related to inflammation? Changes in brain chemistry? Something else entirely. There's still a lot to figure out.
It's pretty fascinating. It makes you wonder.
It does.
And there's even more to uncover. We're going to go beyond weight and disease and explore how sugar can actually speed up the aging process.
Yeah, this is where those pesky AGEs come in.
AGs.
AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. They form when sugar molecules bind to proteins in your body. The problem is these AGEs damage collagen and elastin. And those are the proteins that keep your skin firm and youthful. Think of it like this. Sugar is basically caramelizing your skin from the inside out.
It's like those delicious brown bits on a creme brulee, but happening inside your body.
Exactly. And it gets worse. AGEs don't just affect our skin. They're also involved in other aspects of aging as well, which makes this connection even more worrisome.
Oh, wow.
And if that's not enough to make you reconsider that extra donut, let's dive even deeper down to the cellular level. Did you know that eating too much sugar can actually make your telomeres shorten faster?
Telomeres. That sounds pretty technical.
They are, but they're incredibly important.
Okay.
Imagine telomeres like those little protective caps on the ends of your shoelaces.
Okay.
Just like those caps prevent your laces from fraying, telomeres protect your chromosomes, those structures that hold your DNA, from damage. But here's the problem. Telomeres naturally shorten as we age.
Right.
And when they get too short, our cells can't function properly. And that's linked to a whole bunch of age-related diseases.
So sugar is essentially speeding up the wear and tear on our cells, making us age faster on a microscopic level.
Pretty much.
That's a bit scary.
It is. But before we get too overwhelmed, let's bring it back to something we can all relate to. The dreaded sugar crash.
Oh, yeah.
We've all experienced that, right? That burst of energy followed by a total slump after we eat something sugary. The article breaks down the science behind this phenomenon.
So what's going on? Why do we crash after a sugar rush?
It's all about blood sugar. When you eat something sugary, your blood sugar spikes, and your body releases insulin to bring it back down.
Yeah.
This rapid rise and fall in blood sugar is what causes that initial energy boost, followed by the sudden drop.
I see.
It leaves you feeling sluggish and craving more sugar.
Makes sense. Okay, I think we've had enough doom and gloom for one deep dive. Let's talk about something more specific. Fatty liver disease.
Okay.
The article explains how a high intake of fructose, especially from high fructose corn syrup, increases your risk of developing this condition.
Right. And what's really interesting is that the form in which you consume that fructose can actually make a difference.
Oh, really?
Liquid fructose, like what you find in sugary drinks, seems to be more damaging to the liver than fructose from whole fruits.
So sipping on soda might be worse for your liver than eating an apple, even if the sugar content is similar.
Exactly. It's not just about how much sugar we eat, but also where that sugar comes from.
That's a good reminder. It's all about context. And speaking of context, it's important to remember that the harmful effects of sugar go way beyond what we've talked about today. The article mentions several other potential risks associated with high sugar consumption. Things like...
Oh, yeah. Kidney disease, dental problems, gout, and even cognitive decline. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Wow. I had no idea sugar could be linked to so many different health problems.
Right. It's a lot to take in.
It can feel a little overwhelming.
I know. But I think it's actually empowering to know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Now that we're aware of the potential risks, we can make more informed choices about the food we eat and drink.
Okay, so where do we even begin? I mean, sugar's in everything. How can we realistically cut back?
That's a good question. Well, the article suggests focusing on whole unprocessed foods as much as possible.
That makes sense.
They're naturally lower in added sugars, and they're packed with all those nutrients your body actually needs.
So basically more fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains. But what about those times when you're just craving something sweet?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because the article has some great ideas for smart swaps. Like, instead of grabbing a soda or fruit juice, try water or unsweetened seltzer. There are so many delicious flavored options out there these days. You won't feel like you're missing out on anything.
Yeah, you know what? I've actually been trying to drink more sparkling water lately.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised by how much I actually enjoy it.
See?
It's a nice alternative to sugary drinks.
Yeah.
And it feels a little more festive than just plain water.
It does. And if you're a coffee drinker, try gradually reducing the amount of sugar you add.
Okay.
Maybe start by cutting back by half a teaspoon and see how that goes. You can eventually switch to a natural sweetener or even drink it black. You might be surprised by how quickly your taste buds adjust.
That's a good point. It's all about retraining your palate. What about those sneaky sources of sugar, like yogurt and breakfast cereal?
Good question. The article recommends going for plain yogurt and sweetening it yourself with fresh or frozen fruit.
Well, that's a good idea.
That way you control how much sugar you add, and you get the fiber and nutrients from the fruit.
So it's about being mindful and making conscious decisions about what you're putting into your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of conscious choices, let's talk about snack time. Instead of those prepackaged granola bars or sugary trail mixes, try making your own with nut seeds and maybe a little bit of dark chocolate.
Ooh, Ooh, I like that idea.
You'll get that satisfying sweet and salty crunch without all the added sugars and processed ingredients.
That's great. It's a fun way to get creative in the kitchen
Right.
and make healthy snacking more enjoyable. Any other tips for navigating the grocery store and avoiding those sugar traps?
Oh, yeah, for sure. When you're looking at salad dressings, marinades, nut butter, ketchup marinara sauce, things like that, always check the labels for added sugar.
Oh, that's a good tip.
It's amazing how much sugar can be hiding in those savory products.
It's like sugar is playing hide and seek with us.
It really is. Okay, you ready for some breakfast ideas?
Yeah. Hit me with them. What are some healthy swaps for those sugary cereals that I used to love?
Well, instead of those sugar-laden cereals, how about a bowl of rolled oats? You can top it with some nut butter and fresh berries. Or you can go for an omelet with some greens. Or maybe a protein smoothie made with plain yogurt, fruits, and veggies.
Okay.
These options are much more nourishing, and they'll keep you feeling full and energized all morning long.
They sound delicious. I'm actually kind of inspired to revamp my breakfast routine.
Good. And remember, even small changes can add up to big results over time. Like, here's a quick swap. Instead of jelly on your peanut butter sandwich, try some sliced bananas. Adds that natural sweetness and a nice little boost of potassium.
Simple but effective.
Exactly.
What about those tempting peanut butter spreads, like Nutella? Are those completely off limits?
Well, I wouldn't say totally off limits, but definitely enjoy them in moderation. They're more of a treat than a health food. When choosing nut butter, always go for natural versions with no added sugar.
So read those labels carefully. Speaking of labels, the article mentions that added sugars are now listed separately on nutrition facts panels.
Oh, that's right.
It's so much easier to spot them now.
It's a great way to become a sugar detective. And when you're at the store, remember this, shop the perimeter.
Okay.
That's where you'll usually find all those fresh whole ingredients. Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, dairy products. They're naturally lower in added sugar.
That's like a built-in sugar filter.
Yeah.
I'm totally going to start using that strategy. But what about when you're eating out or at a party? It seems so much harder to avoid sugar then.
Yeah, it can be trickier. But there are still things you can do. Don't be afraid to ask questions at restaurants about how the dishes are prepared. And don't hesitate to request modifications.
Okay.
You can ask for dressing on the side or request that your meal be made without added sugar.
Those are some great tips.
It's all about being an advocate for your own health
Exactly.
and making choices that align with your goals. What about alcohol?
Oh, yeah.
Some drinks can be pretty sugary.
That's true.
Be mindful of those cocktails and mixed drinks. They're often loaded with sugar from all the sodas and juices and syrups.
Yeah.
If you do choose to drink alcohol, go for options that are lower in sugar, like dry wine or spirits mixed with soda water and a squeeze of lime.
So just being aware of your choices.
Yeah.
Even when you're indulging. But beyond all these tips, what's the best way to really get control of our sugar intake?
One of the most powerful tools is just keeping a food diary. Track what you eat and drink for a few days, paying close attention to those added sugars. You might be surprised by what you find.
I bet. It's all about bringing awareness to our eating habits.
Okay.
And then we can start making adjustments.
Yep. And ultimately, the best way to really control your sugar intake is to cook at home as much as possible.
That makes sense.
That way you have complete control over the ingredients and you can avoid all those processed foods that are full of hidden sugars.
It's about taking control of your own health and making choices that really support your well-being.
Exactly. It can feel daunting, but I see it as an exciting opportunity to get creative in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You can try new flavors, new recipes.
So instead of focusing on restricting ourselves, it's about finding healthy and enjoyable ways to satisfy those sweet cravings.
Exactly.
Without sacrificing our health. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports a vibrant and energetic life.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think we should take a pause. We've covered a lot of great tips for reducing sugar intake, and we want to give you some time to think about what really resonated with you. We'll be back with the final part of our deep dive where we'll wrap things up and explore what it all means for you. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into sugar. Before the break, we were talking about practical ways to reduce our sugar intake.
Yeah, it can feel pretty overwhelming, like a huge challenge in our sugar-filled world.
I know, right? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that we're not going for perfection here.
Right. It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Every little step we take towards reducing sugar is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And the article actually offers some helpful guidelines for what's considered a reasonable amount of added sugar to have each day.
Okay, so what's the magic number? How much sugar can we actually have?
Well, it really depends on the person. But the article suggests that men aim for no more than 9 teaspoons of added sugar per day. That's about 36 grams or 150 calories.
Okay, and for women?
It's even less, no more than 6 teaspoons a day. That's about 25 grams or 100 calories.
That might seem like a lot, but it probably adds up pretty quickly.
It does, especially when you consider all those hidden sources of sugar that we talked about.
Yeah, the sneaky sugars. It's so easy to rack up those teaspoons without even realizing it.
It is. So what are the big ones we should be watching out for?
I'm ready to take notes.
Well, the obvious culprits are things like candy cookies, cakes, pies, ice cream milkshakes, soda fruit juice, sports drinks, and those fancy coffee drinks with all the syrups.
Okay, got it.
But we also need to be mindful of those seemingly healthy options that can be surprisingly high in sugar, like low-fat yogurt, flavored oatmeal breakfast cereals, granola bars, things like that.
So basically just read the labels carefully and don't be fooled by fancy marketing.
Exactly. Don't fall for those health halos. And remember, added sugars are now listed separately on those nutrition facts panels.
Right. That makes it much easier. Okay, so we've covered a ton of information in this deep dive.
We have.
We talked about the surprising ways that sugar affects our bodies. Weight gain, heart health, acne, diabetes, cancer, mood disorders, premature aging, even damage to our cells. It's kind of a lot.
It is. It really makes you think about how much sugar we're consuming.
It does. So what's the big takeaway for everyone listening? What do you hope they remember from all of this?
Well, I think the most important thing is that knowledge is power. Now that we know about the potential risks of too much sugar, we can make better choices.
Yeah.
We can focus on eating those whole, unprocessed foods, limit the added sugars, and find healthier ways to satisfy our sweet tooth.
And remember, those small changes can make a big difference over time. Progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into sugar, I have a question for everyone listening. What's one small change you can make today to reduce your own sugar intake?
Maybe it's swapping out that sugary soda for a glass of water, or choosing a piece of fruit instead of a cookie. Whatever it is, remember, you have the power to make choices that support your health and well-being.
That's right. It's all about creating a lifestyle that fuels your body and mind and helps you live a vibrant and energetic life.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of sugar. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and keep making those healthy choices.